All right, welcome to the Books, Beards, Booze podcast, where we drink booze, have beards, and talk books. This is our weekly short read, tall glass episode, where we chat about the latest book news, as well as doing a deep dive on our short story of the week, which this week is The Rats in the Walls by H.P. Lovecraft. I'm Bob of TalesbyBob.
And I'm Derek from wherever Skaven come from.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's just dive right in. Our drink recipe this week is I was wrong on the name. I thought the name of it was Necromangacon, but apparently its name is just Necro, aka the Necromangacon. But it's a mead crafted by B Nectar Meadery in Michigan. It's a mango and pepper mead. And it comes in this big old bottle with a...
You guys can't see the really distasteful look I have on my face.
I bought one a couple years ago now, I guess. I guess. But they actually had it at Filet and Vine in Montgomery. So if we have it in Montgomery, I'm sure you can find it in other places. Just any place that sells like craft beer, like a wide variety of craft beer, will probably have it. But it was pretty good. Pretty good. It was definitely weird. It was actually, that was the first mead I ever had. And you can taste the pepper. It's got a little bite, got a little kick to it.
What kind of pepper are we talking? Are we talking like, I'm not saying it. Like black pepper?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a little bit better. Okay. Well, I don't know. Would it be with mango?
It's weird.
God,
it's a weird drink. But I don't know. I 8 of 10 would get again.
That's really high for something that sounds so odd.
It is. It's very odd. You've never had anything like it. I can just about guarantee. But yeah, real cool and quite fitting for this week's story. So let's
because it's odd.
Because Necronomicon, Necromangacon.
I guess.
So, what are you sipping on, Derek?
Air right now. I had some coffee and a cola icy because I'm really tired.
It's a little early in the day for Derek, but I've got to be in Florida in a few hours, so we had to get these in.
And I didn't sleep for shit. God, I feel terrible.
Well,
but I had
again appropriate for this week's story.
Yeah, but no, really, I had to stop at the gas station on the way up here to make sure I have enough gas. Yeah, I remember they sell ices. That almost makes this all worth it. God, I love an icy. Oh my God, they're so good. And nice. It wasn't even like the ones that you get from Burger King that'll get like kind of stuck in the straw. No, these are like real gas station ices. That motherfucker, not a single clot. It was just amazing the whole way through. And then my stomach hurt because that's a lot of sugar.
It is. It is. I am having leftover Jack and Coke.
From
last week.
Yeah.
I had mixed up a Jack and Coke in a bottle and put it in my fridge. Well, I actually had left it in my car for a couple days and then put it in my fridge. And so, yeah.
What is...
Hey, you know, any port in a storm.
Risk it for the biscuit.
You gotta
or
risk
whatever
it for the
nonsense
biscuit.
you're going to say. Like, is that all you have? Is that just...
No, I have... In my fridge, right in my freezer, I have 3 handles of Heaven Hill.
Jesus!
Yeah, well, my birthday. I got given some for my birthday.
Oh, okay.
And then I've got I got some Jim Beam Black in there, and
sorry, what now?
Yeah, I've got some Jim Beam Black.
You couldn't tell us that before we start recording?
You didn't ask.
Because I was going to be like, man, you know, this is doing the show. Maybe I should take at least take a shot of something.
All right, we're going to pause this and take a shot. All right, and we are back.
And what could possibly go wrong? First of all, that he lied. He did not have Jim Beam Black, which is my jam. He had Jim Beam Rye or something. Yeah. I don't even remember.
There was black on the label, just not the word
No,
black. There's like I think it was border in black.
I'm gonna tell myself it was wishful thinking.
The writing
you were
was
just
in
like,
black.
oh, I wish it was Jim Beam Black because I know it's the best. That's what you were thinking.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So you guys can't see it, but I've got a shot, and I may or may not have a mixed drink, and we're just gonna go with it. So what could possibly go wrong? I've got like 3 hours of sleep, and I'm gonna have to drive home.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it.
Hey.
Nom 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 nom.
Tastes good.
All right. So carrying on with our news. Oh yeah. You good? You good, boss? Is that Jim Beam not sitting good on top of that icy? Is he? Oh. Are we good? I don't think he's good.
I've never felt like this from a shot.
It's because it was Jim Beam and not Jim Beam Black. Alright, well, Derek figures out if he's going to throw up or not. I'm going to talk about... I have two little snippets of news. I didn't see anything that was like real big news. So, two things. One, on Tor, I saw that they are doing a reread on Lovecraft. And here's kind of like the quote. Welcome to the H.P. Lovecraft reread, in which two modern mythos writers, Ruth Anna Emery's and Anne M. Pillsworth, get girl cooties all over Howard's original stories. Together they hope to explore both the awesome and the problematic, both the deliberately and the accidentally horrific. Reading order will be more or less random. As the great race of Yith would point out, if they cared enough to do so, linear time is merely an illusion anyway. So, that's kind of cool. I'm going to check that out. They're not only doing just H.P. Lovecraft stories, but they're doing stories by people that were influenced by him as well. So that'll be cool. And it looks like they're definitely going to tackle some of the real big issues with Lovecraft. The other snippet of news is Disney is... So a lot of people have been asking for years for a sequel to Hocus Pocus and the movie.
I thought at one point they were doing one.
They were going to do a reboot. They were going to remake it.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, everyone hated that idea. They announced that like 2 years ago or something like that.
That's when it... Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they were going to remake it, and even like Bette Midler came out and was like, "Oh, fuck that." But
you know how many times I've seen that damn movie?
I haven't seen it in years, but it was so good.
We should totally watch it sometime.
We should. Yeah, we totally should. But, so guess what? Coming up is the 25-year anniversary of the movie, which, fuck me. But they're going to release a book sequel to it to coincide with the 25-year anniversary, and it's set 25 years after the fact.
When does it come out?
You think I would have written that down, but soonish. This year.
I'm just saying we should read it.
Apparently, the first half of the book is kind of like rehashing the first movie, and then the second half is like the sequel.
So here's the deal. It's like when it comes out, we should watch the movie,
read the book,
and then read the book for the book. I don't think anyone else cares. But I love this thing.
Oh yeah, no, I think,
like back in the day, it was my jam.
Yeah, no. I'm all in. So I think it'll be really cool. And apparently, it's like two of the characters from the first movie.
Mm-hmm. That's why I want to watch the movie.
Mary,
that's why I remember.
And it's their like kid. It's like the next generation having to deal with these same witches. So that's pretty cool, I think. So yeah, that was my news. Go check out Tor and get ready for more Hocus Pocus. The most exciting bit of Derek news is that he didn't throw up.
No, that was really weird. Like, super weird. Anyways, my news is not so much... I couldn't really... I think I found something late last night, but it was... Last night at work was long, and there's a lot of stuff going on, so I don't remember what I ended up finding. So I just looked at something real quick. And my news is just going to be the update that we did a couple of episodes ago. We did the news on whether or not the Nobel Prize of this year in literature was going to be canceled, and we never followed up on that. I looked at it again recently and found out that they did indeed decide to cancel it for the year. So there will be no Nobel Prize in literature awarded this year, and they will award 2 next year. So,
which I think was the right call.
I guess we kind of discussed it before. Whatever they decided is fine. I guess it's a real. I so dislike that it's gonna affect people that it just had nothing to do with it. Like, they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. With any luck, the same person that would have won this year will get rewarded next year, and their lives won't be hell for the next year.
Right.
I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine, but it's just a bummer all the way around. It was just a disappointment.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
I think I'd be more disappointed if I paid more attention to it.
Yeah.
No, I don't really pay attention to
I don't.
It's one of those deals, like, if I see it, I think the last thing I remember was Bob Dylan getting it for poetry.
Yeah, the problem, I kind of look at it the same way I look at, the award ceremonies for, movies and stuff like that. They give it to stuff that doesn't deserve it, for the most part, in my opinion. Cool, it might be technically sound, but, no one reads it. You gotta find a middle ground where it's critically acclaimed and successful. Otherwise, I just don't care.
Right. So that's the news. We still don't have a sponsor, but if we did...
why do you gotta say it like that? Why couldn't you just pretend that these were real sponsors?
So, here's our commercial from our sponsor this week. Looking to travel? Want a trip that starts out interesting but then bogs down into an interminable slog? One with too many characters distracting you from storylines that actually interest you? Try the 2 Rivers. Lord Perrin welcomes you, and his annoying wife will likely drive you half mad.
No. How dare you say that about my girl? How dare you?
Fail.
Look, I would call her... What
her
was her real name? I'm blanking on what her name was.
Fail is...
Yeah, first of all, it's pronounced Fail.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But, look, she wouldn't drive anybody insane except for Perrin, and that's only because he's dumb. Just strong hand. Keep that pimp hand strong. She literally tells him that's all he has to do, and he still doesn't do it.
Well.
What a putz.
Well. It is what it is. So anyway, let's dive into our story of the week. As we said, and as you should have seen on the blog, we're doing The Rats in the Walls by H.P. Lovecraft, which this story holds a special place in my heart because this is the story that introduced me to Lovecraft. I had a collection of collection of fantasy stories. It was called the World Anthology of Fantasy or something like that. And it had The Rats in the Walls in it, and I read it and instantly fell in love. I was like, I want to read more like this. And so I looked up Lovecraft and went on to Amazon and bought some collections of his short stories, and then I was rapidly down the rabbit hole. And so let's dive in a little bit on his history. Howard Philip Lovecraft was born in 1890 and died in 1937. He was born in and died in Providence, Rhode Island. Shocker, he was a weird little shit.
No.
He died in poverty, partly because he was really shit at promoting himself, which, relatable. So in his younger years...
Yeah, you're right, all the way around. You're
right. Oh, yeah, no.
Weird little shit.
So his dad went insane and died of syphilis.
I feel like you should say died of syphilis having been driven insane.
Yeah.
Because you go insane when you have syphilis.
Right,
it's not like he went insane and then died.
Correct. Correct.
That caused him to go insane.
There's a theory that it was because basically he was a traveling salesman and his wife wouldn't touch him, and so he slept with women on the road.
Yeah.
But never been proven. So he was raised by his mother's family. His mother's family was rich. His grandfather was a businessman, had a bunch of investments in Providence, rich guy. So he was more or less raised by his mom and his 2 aunts and his grandfather. He could read and write by the age of 3. and he kind of idolized his granddad. Well, his grandmother died, and apparently everything went to shit. Like, everyone was super depressed, and then, like, a bunch of, like, business failings happened. The granddad died. They end up having to fire all the servants, yada, yada, yada. Just, it was all downhill from there. Well, he got real big into astronomy. Put out his own, like, many issues of his own magazine about astronomy. And then he got into basically a flame war in the comments of, I think, what's the magazine? Argosy, I think. Yeah, I think Argosy. Got into a flame war about the quality of some guy's writing, and that caught the interest of this journalist who was like, oh, hey, I like your flame war, basically. You should come be a journalist.
What the hell?
Yeah, more or less. So he got real big into amateur journalism. Like, to where he was on, like, the National Council of Amateur Journalists, yada, yada, yada. Well, at some point, some people convinced him, like, hey, you should write fantasy. You should write fiction. It's like, he'd already written some poetry and yada, yada, yada. And so he eventually did. And that's kind of what he's known for now, obviously, is he comes up with the Cthulhu mythos, which he never really called it that. Like, people after the fact kind of came together and more pieced it together. But, so, comes up with all this cool stuff, and he's really kind of, I'd say he's like the first modern American horror writer. Like, his big influence was Poe.
Yeah, I was about to say, does Poe not count as modern?
No, I don't. I mean, I guess maybe you can. I don't know. But
I don't remember his
but
time.
So, well, Poe is like the 1800s.
Yeah.
So this is like Lovecraft's hitting his stride here in like the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
So,
almost 100 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. But like he was real. He got married. Moved around. He lived in New York for a while. Lived in, I think, Cleveland for a while. Eventually,
that would drive anybody crazy.
Eventually, him and his wife his wife basically supported him. Mm-hmm. Like, she was like, "Oh no, you just write. I'll work.
You do you, boo."
Right. And they eventually separate. He goes back to Providence. They eventually kind of get divorced, but very amicable. Like, there's no bad blood there. Well, he ends up dying of cancer around the time that the last little bit of his inheritance was running out. So he pretty much died in poverty. He never made a living off of his writing. Never made enough to even really pay the bills.
Yeah.
Other things of note, he was pen pals with Robert Howard, who created Conan.
Which explains a lot of the lore in Conan.
Yeah. 2, he wrote a ton of letters. It's estimated he may have written as many as like 100,000 letters. Possibly like the second most prolific letter writer of like the modern era of note kind of deal. Like, he crazy on nuts. And we have, I think it's estimated that we still have like at least a fifth of his letters, which I've never read, but people have started publishing collections of them. I do want to check that out. Here's the other big thing. Super racist.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Super racist.
After reading this story,
you would never have guessed.
Made me super uncomfortable. I did not remember this.
Oh yeah, so he is super racist. His racism comes from, he was an antiquarian. Like, for him, like, everything went to shit, like, in the modern era. Like, he was like, the 1700s were the best, because that's when things were pure, and then the 1800s were great because that brought in science, but then by the 1900s, everything's gone to shit. You know, old is best. And basically, if you were not a Protestant Anglo-Saxon, you were a piece of shit. So, I mean, he wasn't just racist towards black. He didn't like Irish Catholics either. He
what a lovely man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he hated Jews, but actually married one because she was, and I quote, had become sufficiently Western. So like, was his... how much do you know about his beliefs? A fair...
Like, was it...
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Was it from he felt they didn't have the right.
He thought that Protestant Anglo-Saxons were the pinnacle of civilization.
Mm-hmm.
No one else got it right. Everyone else was trash and was bringing about the end of civilization. So they were all trash. And his view on African Americans, or just any black person anywhere in the world, that they were basically animals. He had some weird views on evolution, as you can kind of comes out in this.
Yeah.
And so he
that kind of threw me off.
Yeah, he. But here's the thing.
At the time, did they know that's not how that worked?
I don't know. I don't know how much he knew. But here's the thing. He was, oh man, Jews were the devil, Jews were the devil. But then he marries one. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you he basically, what it seems like is he was against everything, anyone and everyone, except for the people he was around.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, I think if he had lived more cosmopolitanly, less hermetically, I think he would have eventually...
Yeah, because he was rich.
He was smart.
And he was rich at one point, so he was probably fairly secluded socially.
Yes. And the guy was incredibly intelligent, and I think he was smart enough that if he'd been exposed to more people, I think long-term he would have gotten better. But maybe I'm just being an apologist. Maybe he would have just stayed this racist piece of shit forever. So... but the reason I chose this story, there were others. I really wanted to do a Lovecraft story. The reason I chose this one is because
I don't think I've read this one before. I thought we talked about it before, but I thought I hadn't.
But it does. It shows his racism and some of his views. Like, to me, this is the most well-rounded, where you see the good and the bad of Lovecraft. Like, if you like this story, then you can go forward knowing it's like this is what you're going to get. Not every story is going to have every one of these elements, but this is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So there are going to be some stories that are racist. There are going to be some stories that aren't. But most of them are going to have this kind of creepy freakiness to them.
Yeah. So,
do you have a fact?
Only because, that, so, story's called The Rats in the Walls.
Yeah.
I heard a number and wanted to look something up, and I looked it up. Did you know that there are approximately 2 million rats in New York City?
Did not.
Some people they kind of... The urban legend is that there was 5 times as many rats in New York City as people. But that's not true. And as of 2014, they did a study which allowed them to roughly estimate that it's probably approximately 2 million.
Yeah.
Which is still a crap
It's a fuck ton. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I would have thought there's at least 1 rat per person. And New York's got 8 million people.
Yeah, they said it's roughly 20%
yeah.
of the population. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I read that... I heard the number somewhere, and then I looked it up to double check it, and I found that study.
Huh.
But...
So, my fact led to a weirder fact.
Oh, and I've got another fact that I will mention as we're discussing it.
Okay. So, he mentions the Marquis de Sade in here, and alongside a guy named Giles de Retz.
Which...
I did not know who he was.
Put a pin in it. I know the name of the first one, but I don't remember what he did.
It's actually Giles de Retz.
Mm-hmm.
He got it wrong, or maybe that's the anglicized version of Giles de Retz. Wow, super bad dude. Obviously, he's put there with Marquis de Sade.
Yeah, I don't remember. Tell me who that is.
Marquis de Sade?
Yeah, 'cause
that's where sadist comes from. The word sadist.
Uh-huh.
He was a famous...
What did he do?
He wrote a bunch of stuff, too. He was a writer.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, look into him. He's fascinating. Anyway. Well, so Giles de Retz is widely considered to have killed somewhere between 80 and possibly as many as 600 kids. Yeah, interestingly, he was a commander alongside Joan of Arc. Look him up. Super interesting. There's a little bit of like
Bob,
maybe
I'm
he
starting
didn't.
to question your idea of interesting.
It's super fascinating. But here's the best part. So several years after his death, his daughter Marie had a stone memorial erected at the site of his execution. Over the years, the structure came to be regarded as a holy altar under the protection of Saint Anne. Generations of pregnant women flocked there to pray for an abundance of breast milk.
What?
What? I don't know, man. Isn't that great? Like, like it was a weird fact off of a weird fact. Like, I don't know. I just love the fuck out of that fact. The idea of praying for breast milk off the site of execution of a guy who killed
Why did you
hundreds
kill
of
children?
So it was thought like maybe like he was trying to summon a demon, but what it seems like is he was just a serial killer, like a pedophile serial killer, and he had some accomplices that helped him with that.
Did he?
Oh yeah, he engaged in relations with them and then killed them. Oh yeah, no, terrible dude. If he did it, there's some conjecture that maybe he didn't. Maybe he was set up. Regardless, great Wikipedia page to go read if you just want to read about some
I don't think I do.
abject fuckery.
Don't think I do.
All right, so let's talk about the story a little bit.
Okay. Initial thoughts. I hated it.
Okay. That's fair. That's
fair.
Lovecraft is not for everyone.
That's a slight... Well, I've read other Lovecraft that I liked.
Yeah.
That's a slight exaggeration, and by slight, I mean I mostly said that just to see your face die. But my emotions on this one are pretty, like, I shouldn't say emotions. My opinion of this is very, very mixed.
Okay.
Didn't enjoy it. Don't like the way it's presented like it's, I can acknowledge it's well done, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
But the story's interesting.
Yeah.
I just think it's done not interesting. Like it's presented in a way that I found, while technically sound, boring.
Fair.
If that makes
sense. It's very expository.
Yeah, and which I understand. That's kind of, I feel like from what little of him I've read, that's kind of his thing. Because doesn't he generally kind of do it from like almost like a journal perspective?
Where a lot of stuff is written like a journal.
The stuff that I've read has been like
Call of Cthulhu is kind of.
There's one with like this hill of bones. Anyways, but I've read some and I like some more than others. Again, I noticed that when I was reading it, the first like 3, because I printed it off so that I could read it. The first third of the entire story was nothing but like
background.
Yeah.
Like, here's the history of my family.
Which I understand, like, is the entirety of the thing was like, had this same story been told a different way, it would have been very good.
Yeah.
But I do not like the way he chose to tell it. Because, like, even the writing itself...
I'll agree with that. Like, to me, he's kind of known for having very passive narrators kind of deal. Like, narrators tend to not be the most active, like, really doing stuff. Like, things happen to them a lot more than they go out.
Which is...
And so, like, I agree. Like, the first part of this, it's just a history lesson on a family. But I think, like, the reason I like it so much, I like the later parts of it. And to me, the later parts... To me, I realize not to everyone, make up for...
I'm going to be honest with you. This is the only time I've almost not finished. I almost just quit. Mm. Like, I got to... Honestly, right before I started enjoying it at all.
Yeah.
Like, I pretty much just... Which, I think it was 9 pages printed off, the way I printed it off. I stopped at, like, the end of page 6. So I got 2/3 of the way through it, and then I was just like, It was... like 5:30 in the morning. I was tired. I just wanted to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just gonna look up what happens, because I thought I had read this one, but as I got closer into it, I was like, no, I don't think I did. Wikipedia did, and I was like, okay, well, I'm finishing this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no it.
And I read it and was like,
it gets good.
And I understood, like, the last paragraph. Is it the last couple of paragraphs where he goes crazy?
Yeah. Well, he's not he's not going crazy. It's his ancestral legacy is coming through his blood. He's actually like receding through past lives, and it's not like it's supposed to be that he's not gone crazy. It's that his fucky views on evolution coming through a little bit.
Oh, okay. Because I was about to say that was not clear to me.
His bloodline coming through that he's received. Because everything that he says, if you notice, like the length, like at the end there, he's speaking in like Old English.
Yeah, I know. I looked at like Gaelic.
It goes chronologically back through time. Okay. He is going back through his.
Okay, well that.
So that he's not gone crazy. He
might have been more clear had I read it when he wrote it, if that makes sense.
So here's my advice to anyone who wants to read Lovecraft: Don't read just a collection of Lovecraft. Go out and find one annotated.
So that it gives you that information?
Not just by anybody. By S.T. Joshi. Joshi. He's the Lovecraft scholar. He is the guy. And his annotations are great. And that's the thing about Lovecraft. He's a really smart guy, and he uses a lot of kind of obscure references that are even more obscure to us because we're not living in that time. So does a great job of really kind of filling in the gaps, and you get more of an appreciation for it, I think, when you get some of these.
No, like I can appreciate some of the stuff. Yeah. It was just like this was a thing. It was almost like the movie that you know is technically sound and makes you sad, and you don't feel good afterwards. But when you walk it, you're like, that was pretty good. Except for, in my opinion, it was shot poorly.
Yeah,
like the story was still good, the acting was still good. But
to me, it was definitely a story that the payoff was in the end. Like it, definitely not like the most thrilling story. But then when you get to the end, like it makes the journey.
I'll admit that I was super tired when I was finishing it, so that probably
Lovecraft can be very dry.
And because I didn't enjoy the early parts, but I've taken a course on Gothic literature. So as I was reading it, I was like literally writing in the margins every time I noticed a Gothic theme, and that was just fun for me.
Yeah.
But as I kind of got tired of that, because I kept writing stuff like strange, mysterious, historical, and then I was like, well, that's the first 3 pages. All of it is just strange mystery, and I was like, okay, no one's doing a thing at all. But the reason that I came around to being like, okay, I don't hate this, is because as I was finishing it, like no shit, like the second to last paragraph, where like it's talking about him waking up from like eating old dude,
eating Nori's face,
and all that. Like I'm reading that, sitting in my chair in my room. And, like, my fan makes a bag in my room just slightly move, and I damn near jumped out of my fucking skin. I lost it. Like, I just went, ah!
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, clearly he did something right, because that creeped me the fuck out. But, then I was like, that was literally it, because I was like, this sucks. I don't like this. I'm not enjoying this. La, la, la. Ah! Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's definitely his stories build atmosphere, and I think that's the hardest thing to capture, like building good atmosphere like this. Like a lot of times you don't even realize it, and then you're just all in on it. But yeah, this is so you get the racism.
Yeah,
you get the kind of fucky views on evolution, which plays into his evolution or his racism.
So my fun fact about that was like, oh yeah, that was the fact, by the way, that I jumped.
Oh,
like that scared the crap out of me.
Nice.
But you couldn't let me know the cat's name, Bob. You couldn't let me know that was going to happen. Like we were talking about maybe not even doing a good man is hard to find because of what they mentioned, and you don't tell me that this is in here.
Yeah. And here's the thing. He named that cat after his cat. Lovecraft actually had a cat with that name.
That kind of stuff, like, I can look at it and go, come on, man. It doesn't normally, like, piss me off. By the end, I was like, this motherfucker.
Yeah. No, like I said, it
Yeah, but normally it doesn't get to me. Like, normally I'm just like, okay, people were fucked up, and this guy was particularly misinformed and fucked up. But, like, for whatever reason, I was mad.
And I think at the end of the day, that's the real thing about Lovecraft. At the end of the day, there's so many writers of that time, they were racist, they were a product of their time. Lovecraft was a bit beyond just a product of his time. Dude was real racist. Like no excuses, like he was real racist.
I didn't actually know that until, what was it, late last year when I came in and was talking to you about it? I'd never...
Oh, yeah. No. He was more than just a product of his time. It was...
he was like, let me use my intellectual knowledge to pseudoscience a way to say that this is a thing.
Yeah. And it's all because of how obsessed he was with...
Lineage, maybe?
You know what? If right now, if he was alive today, he would be walking around Providence with a Make America Great hat. He would be wearing a MAGA hat. For all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I was about to say.
For all the wrong reasons. His idea would be like not like you hear so many people like when they're talking about Make America Great, like take it back to the 50s kind of deal. What a lot of people say, a lot of white people say. But he would probably be like, oh yeah, let's take it back to like the 1780s. Like that's when America was great. Like 1793. Let's take it back to there because that's kind of where his wheelhouse was. Like he liked old things. He was a antiquarian. Yeah. Yeah. A utterly brilliant idiot.
He dumb.
Yeah. So yeah. Did you have a favorite line?
No, but I'm not even close to them talking about this.
Oh, okay.
So, I understand why he did some of the things he did, and I understand that it plays into the Gothic literary tradition. But I feel like, in some points, the way he did it could have been better. For example, you're supposed to kind of, from what I remember, and there's some words for this that I'm blanking on, that I tried to look up my notes last night. I went in on this, okay? Like, I went in, like, trying to address this, because I know this is one of your jams.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's take this seriously. And I tried to, but I couldn't find my notes, and then it was super late, and I was like, God bless it. But, like, I noticed a lot of themes that were prevalent, which was really cool. Like, the precipice, which is, the sublime, so they did that. There was some of the grotesque, but, like, I understand a lot of the grotesque, you have to use it in a certain way so as to cause people to draw back. But the best way to do that is to not be overly descriptive so that you can't really put a name to it.
Yeah.
But he does this thing, and I think it's a thing that he does a lot, where he says things are unimaginable or... which I understand.
That's kind of a his thing.
Right. But... maybe it was the narrative style at the time. It's like, you could say and show disparate things that don't necessarily make sense, that would cause the same confusion and unease without calling it unimaginable. And I feel like it would have a better impact.
But here's the thing. I think the fundamental difference between what he's doing and what like Gothic literature is doing is in most of Lovecraft's stuff. I mean, he does have some traditional horror stories, and this is kind of like, this is sort of almost like a proto-Cthulhian story. The difference is Gothic deals with the supernatural or just like the grotesque. Like, it's going to be like you're going to have a ghost or... like a creepy family or something, or a curse, stuff that
had all that stuff,
right? But with Lovecraft, most of his stuff is coming from out of this world, and our human mind cannot comprehend it.
Yeah.
So, like, he talks about, like, non-Euclidean geometry.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't none. You know, like, he talks, like, just looking at it causes people's heads to hurt kind of deal. You know, it's like, he can give hints at it. And, like, my favorite line in here kind of, it shows a bit without going, like, super deep.
Go ahead and do that. I didn't mean to just...
No.
Everything, but...
Yeah. This is the bit that stuck with me. Because it's not super... Like, years after reading it, this is the line that stands out to me. It's the dream he has. Like, I retired early being very sleepy, but was harassed by dreams of the most horrible sort. I seemed to be looking down from an immense height upon a twilight grotto, knee-deep in filth.
Dream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where a white-bearded Damon swineherd drove about with his staff a flock of fungus, flabby beasts, whose appearance filled me with an unutterable loathing. Then, as the swineherd paused and nodded over his task, a mighty swarm of rats rained down on the stinking abyss and fell to devouring beasts and man alike. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's not overly descriptive. Like, either one of us could have easily done multiple paragraphs on this dream.
There's some... I understand the effect of not doing that. Yeah. I do.
But, so, not necessarily in this story, but overall with Lovecraft, the reason he falls back on indescribable is because it is, like... It is
but see,
indescribable.
Here's my thing, is I know that's what he's going for, but that's not having read a whole bunch of Gothic, like, literature and books for my class. Like, it wasn't a part of, you know, from what I understand of the Cthulhu lore, which is not really my thing. Part of it is that he's so, or they, or the elder gods, whatever, are so estranged and out there that they're incomprehensible, kind of thing. Is that right? Well, I mean, when they talk about the spiritual realm in a lot of these Gothic books, that's how they treat them. They're unknowable, and it's so twisted and freaky that you don't understand it. So it's not original to him to do that. It's just what you attack the unimaginative to is ghosts instead of alien gods. Like, it's the same effect coming from a different source, but it's the same thing. You see what I'm saying? So, like...
I do, but we all have ghost stories, kind of deal. You know, it's like... The Gothic writers were pulling from things around them, you know? Like, ghost stories and vampires and creepy families and stuff like that. Like, it was stuff that was commonly in the culture. Mm-hmm. This wasn't. Like, no one was... People weren't doing this like this. Like, that's partly why he is so influential. He was the first person to really like, I'm sure that there are probably some other people low-key doing this, but he was the first one to popularize this cosmic horror.
Okay,
so
well,
to speak.
using this specific story as an example, I don't feel like there was anything cosmic.
Oh, well, this is early. This is one of the...
This is why you said pseudo?
Yeah. This
because
is...
You
start seeing the hints of it when he, like, talking about, like, ancient cults and things like that. Like, he's going to take... Like, later stories are going to really play that up. This is one of the first... If I remember correctly, this is one of, like, the first stories he wrote. It was pretty early in his fiction career.
Because what I would point out is that with... This could have been written by a number of Gothic writers that I've read.
He's got other stories that that are like straight up horror that Poe could have written, and he's got other stories that are There's a guy named Lord Dunsany that was a big influence. He goes through a spell where he writes very Lord Dunsany type stories. That's called the Dream Cycle stuff, which is actually my favorite, but doesn't get the love. They're amazing. But, like, so it's only, like, in his later kind of career when he really, like, that's when you get your Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that he really starts doing more of a deep dive
because what I would point out is
like Colorado, like, to see probably the best of that is read the Color Out of Space, because it's about like basically incomprehensible color from out of space. It's a weird story. It's good though.
Okay,
So.
maybe I'll have to because like I'm not saying that like he didn't do anything original or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this was and then even calling it a traditional Gothic story that's not a negative thing. I mean I
love
the
Gothic.
yeah. I mean I have some books that you should read, but yeah. I mean it was kind of comfortable in a way because of the stories that I've read in the past, except the fact that I have to be in a certain headspace to know that what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
And I didn't
You
really.
weren't there.
No, I didn't realize I was getting into this because like he's more modern than like fucking reading The Monk. Or reading The Castle of Otranto.
To me, he's the bridge between like Poe and more modern horror.
I guess. But see, my thing is like, no, never mind. I mean, like from what I remember, I had an easier time reading Poe than I had reading Lovecraft.
It depends on the Poe.
That's got to be.
Lovecraft.
Yeah, that's got to be the.
I read the entirety of both. Sometimes Poe's thick.
Goes sideways.
Yeah. And same for Lovecraft.
But I've talked enough. Tell me what you think about. I mean, this is one of your favorite stories, right? This is one of your favorite.
It's not my.
It's just encapsulated most of his.
And I think it does the best job of kind of giving you a taste of what you're going to get of Lovecraft.
Why do you have so many cats?
Why did he have so many cats?
Yeah.
Did he have a lot of cats?
He had 9 cats.
Lovecraft?
In the story.
Oh. Because he had a lot of rats.
Well, he didn't know that at the time. He already had the cats before he had the rats.
Was he
anticipating bats?
His inner blood was cluing him in subconsciously that he was going to have a rat problem. But I don't know. It's pretty like back then. You didn't really have a Terminex guy.
I know,
but big old drafty estate like that, you need a lot of cats. Keep the rats down.
Well, here's a question: would it have been drafty? He just rebuilt the damn thing.
Well, it's rebuilding an old place. I don't know. Maybe it would be kind of drafty. Stone's hard to keep warm.
I specifically pointed, like at some point they were like, the first time he heard the mice, he was like, "Oh, there should be no mice." I was like, "Bullshit, Lovecraft. Have you ever lived in the country? I don't care how long you're in the country or you just built the house. There are always mice in the fucking country." That kind of I literally stopped reading for about 15 minutes going, this motherfucker, has he never... I was like, I lived in...
No.
I went sideways a couple of moments in this.
No,
reading.
it's... I don't know. I think I also kind of like this story a little bit more than I think a lot of people will because I am such a history buff. And so, like... It's like when I understand why people would be turned off by the early parts, and it is a little dry. But to me, it was like, oh, okay, it's interesting. I see, it's...
I think my whole thing is, I need to be aware of what I'm getting into. Because if I know that I'm going into an expository, ancestral examination of history, then I'm like, okay, that means I do... It's going to take longer, because I'm just going to kind of take my time and kind of think about it more. I thought I was getting a story.
Yeah.
And there was no active participation in the story for the most part. Like, the only real active stuff happened in, like, the last so let's say the last 15 to 20% of the story.
Yeah.
Everything else was real passive. And that's the thing, I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because this seems like, just from what little of Lovecraft I've read, it feels like the characters in Lovecraft are the lore, not the characters. Because the lore and the, like, supernatural and the background, that's the stuff that does all the active parts. And the characters are only reacting the entire time.
Not always, but I think you're...
And that makes for a very difficult read sometimes. Because it's very frustrating, because you're like... What part of what drives you forward in reading a novel is when a character is making decisions and doing things. That's why when a villain in a novel is the one causing all of the action, it's generally considered a poorly constructed story because the main character has no what's the word? Sovereignty is not the
agency.
Agency, thank you. He has no real agency. Like and it comes down, I feel like, to a mental thing with humans. Like, you have a completely different pathway from when people are acting on you or when you're accepting.
And I think this
action.
is all part of who Lovecraft was as a person, is reflected in his writing. In his view, he loved walking around Providence, looking at old buildings, things like that. Like, he just loved, that was his jam. Like, walking around looking at architecture, stuff like that. In his mind, people were shit. Like, everyone was fucking everything up. Like, it was like, he liked going and looking at old buildings because that could make him think of old times because people were shit. So it kind of makes sense that for him, it's the history of a thing that is more interesting than the person, because in his mind, most people are shit.
Which would make sense because he was disconnected from people, so he would be disconnected from taking action a lot of times. So
he went through he would be a hermit for a while, but then there was a while but he always was super active in letters.
Yeah.
Well, not always, but he got real active in letters as an adult. And then he had when he lived in New York, he had he had a clique in New York that he was a part of. Frank Long, I think, Frank Belknap Long, who's if you've read Lovecraft, you'll be aware of him. I think that's where they kind of became buddy at. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, by and large, people are shit. So
that was interesting.
I think that could be reflected.
So here's the thing that I pose to you is a disconnect in his logic on this whole thing. He was what is it called? Antiquarian. I think that's kind of... No, maybe, maybe that fits his personality. Because here's the thing. He seemed fairly secluded socially, for the most part. Like, he was in high society, so he dealt with those kind of people.
Well, he was never...
Well, not high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He also didn't graduate high school. Never went to college.
Well, of course he didn't go to college. He thought,
He was going to. That was his plan. He was going to go to Brown, was his plan. But he never graduated high school.
But,
he was sick a lot. No one really knows what he was actually sick with, though.
The vapors. No, but,
who knows?
So, he doesn't really like people. He thinks that they're everything wrong with everything. So he relates to the past that's disconnected from him being able to actually interact with it. But if he had been able to interact with it, he would have realized it sucked worse than then.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me.
Yeah. Like I said, a brilliant idiot.
Yeah, okay. So, I would like to think of a different way to phrase that. Like, No, I guess it's the right way to do it, because he was brilliant, high intellect, low wisdom.
Yeah, there we go.
I was trying to think of better, adjectives for that. Yeah.
Cool. It was a good story. Not a great story.
No, I think here's the thing though. My whole thing is I think it's a very good story, but poorly presented. Like I think that the story itself is chilling and terrifying, but I just didn't like how he told it.
Yeah, I also think
felt like it could have been a lot more effective.
Well, also I think if we had not I think if we were alive in 1930s, I think we'd view it as a lot better story than we do, because
would we have? They didn't back then.
Well, no, they did.
Well, then why wasn't he commercially successful?
He sold the story. I mean, but he sold the story to, what was it? Not Weird. I keep wanting to say Weird Science. Weird Tales.
Yeah.
I don't know if he sold this one to Weird Tales, but he was selling his stories. But he was so he had people ask oh well, hey, do you have a novel? We'd love to publish a novel of yours, and he just never followed up with it. He just never wrote him back, and then people would if people would
So he was selling his short stories.
Yes. Well, he never really wrote any novels. novel, not like we would consider. He wrote a couple of novellas.
Yeah.
But they would like he had written like At the Mountains of Madness and
I've read
the Case of Charles.
that.
But like the Case of Charles Dexter Wharton, is that the one? The one that they made into the Herbert West Reanimator, like that they made into the movies. Like that's a 6 part.
I didn't actually know that.
That's a 6-part story that he wrote. That he, if you ever read it now, it gets real repetitive. But it was published as a serial, so
that's why
he's got to recap. He's got to recap every. But anyway, it's good though. But it's one of those deals. Like he was selling stories, but like if it got rejected once. That was it. He would never try and like a lot of times he would never.
Oh, it's not good. So
yeah, like he could not handle critique and rejection.
Was it that he couldn't handle it, or he got it back? Oh well, this apparently I didn't do it.
No,
right,
he was a little. He's a weird little shit.
Okay.
So, but like I said, like he had people like, hey, we'd publish a novel yours, and he just never responded. Like he was shit at promotion. If he'd had a business manager. He probably would have been famous in his lifetime. But like people loved his stories. Like he was.
So when it got published and stuff, people were like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting."
He was popular enough that he actually got invited to be the editor for Weird Tales, but he didn't want to move to Chicago. So,
what a putz.
Well, I think it's because he viewed it as like it was too modern of a town. He just couldn't live there.
God,
it had no age to it.
You know what I would have liked? Antiquity. I would have liked if he had moved there. That's an interesting because he would have.
I'm surprised he moved out of Providence.
You know why? Because if he had moved there and he had been around modern things and modern people and realized, hey, people don't suck. I want to see how that would have affected his work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like see if.
Well, I mean, he moved to New York. He lived in New York for a while.
It's an old city, though.
It is, but I mean, they had modern things. But like it's like he wrote one story that he lived in New York and got robbed. Of like everything, he had like the clothes on his back and that was it. So like didn't leave a good taste in his mouth. So he moved back to Providence, moved in with an aunt, and was happy again, kind of as happy as he gets.
Yeah, I was going to say as happy as someone can be with his outlook on life,
his predilections.
Yeah, well, this was interesting. I wish you would have tell me more about what you think about the story.
It's good shit. Well, we've run a bit long.
Well, yeah, but this is Lovecraft. This is a big one.
If we want to do a deep dive on another Lovecraft story, I'm all down for it. I don't want to do it on this story. I want it to be.
What would you do it on?
If
you want to do it, give me like a month in advance.
Okay.
And I can read it.
Okay.
And kind of.
I'd like to do 2 stories. I'd like to do one from his.
Well, let's announce it now.
I don't know what I'm going to have to pick.
Okay, well.
But I'm going to tell you, it'll be one from his dream cycle, and then it'll probably be the Call of Cthulhu. Probably. If we're going to do one, we're going to fucking do one.
Well, then, maybe, a month from now? So how many? We've got
14 weeks, and this is week 8.
We can do a bonus for it, maybe?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Let's do a bonus episode on it.
So, we'll read, 2 short stories?
Yeah.
Or is it one novella? Or
2 short stories.
2 short stories? Okay. We'll do 2 short stories, and then kind of dive in on that.
Into the Cats of Ulthar. That'd be a fun one. We'll see.
Let me know sometime soon, as soon as you possibly can, so I have time to work on it.
I'll let you borrow my St. Joshi annotated.
Oh,
collection,
good.
To read it with.
Okay.
All right. Well, next week we're going to be reading The Ones Who Walk Away from Omlos by Ursula K. Le Guin, which Derek picked but doesn't remember picking.
I don't recognize the name, but when you said it was Ursula K. Le Guin, right?
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. I haven't read it.
Neither have I. All the other things that I've picked, I'd read before. This is.
We're starting getting this is the last story that I've picked that I've read. Everything I've picked from here on out, I've
same
not read
here.
before.
I haven't read anything. Only reason I picked this because it was Ursula K. Le Guin.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, it's gonna be great. We don't really have any viewer mail this week. Do invite you to contact us. Email us at bookspiritsbooze@gmail.com. Check out our blog. Check out our Facebook page. Check out our Twitter. But I guess as you head out into the rest of your weekend or whenever you listen to this, I challenge you to go forth and grow a great beard.